We have I'm actually home from work and we are going to try to paint this goal that I put together last night on the feed. Real quick job, I hope. But I wanted to, the reason why I'm streaming this is, well, one, it's an experiment. We're going to see if this actually works. And two, I wanted to kind of show you guys the process in so far as like a self-contained 60-minute session here. So I think I can get this all done in the space of about an hour, and frankly that's all I may have, if that. My wife and kids are out right now. They're at Chuck E. Cheese, so we're gonna see what happens if I can actually. It's kind of a interesting little challenge here to see if I can actually finish this before they get home. All right, so very first thing, I'm going to show you the priming and how I do the priming, and this is actually better because you get to see it in terms of an entire project. So you get to see how all of this works. One thing I have to do though is I got to make sure I've got the right airbrush in, because I have an airbrush that's set at 0.3 and that using a 0.3 needle, and then one that I use as at a 0.2 for detail work. So I need that 0.3 back in so I can do the priming. All right, and I'm going to give that a quick clean. Again, we're going for the entire process done in the space of an hour, so that does include cleaning and prepping from the last session. All right, so we're going to clean this airbrush needle off. Now when I clean my airbrush needle for this, because I do use such a beat up airbrush for priming, I just use water. I used to use like alcohol, Windex, that kind of stuff. People will tell you to use all kinds of stuff, airbrush cleaner. If you're just priming and you have an airbrush that's all it does really is the priming for you, then just use the water for it. All right. Hey, what's up, Cameron? See, I could have snuck out again. We could have played another game today. Anyway, all right. So we're going to use a gray primer. And I hope this isn't too thick. We'll find out. Sure, it's nice. Okay. And I always prime kind of upside down. So I just kind of hold the model upside down when I'm priming it. Because the idea here is going to be get the primer down. It's almost impossible to tell if I actually have the primer coming out of the gun because of how the color of this goal. So this is like I'm going to be using this as a kind of I mean, it will be my Mason's goal, but it's also kind of a little more generic goal. All I'm trying to do right now is get a layer of primer on it that doesn't seem to be, it's not coming out the way I want it to, so I'm gonna try to clear this jam. There we go. There we go. All right. So that was good. We went ahead and cleared that jam out, and now we've got a layer of primer going down. Primer can have a hard time sticking to Reaper bones, so you got to be careful at this stage. It's very easy for me to wipe that primer right off the plastic. So while that's going, I'm just going to clean up the airbrush a little bit more. And yeah, we're going to keep going. So last night we finished the Marcus crew. That was awesome. I've got to seal them. I've got to seal them and the Guild Ball team actually. And then I can start my eBay listing on that. So what I'm doing right now is I have a totally empty airbrush, and so I'm just gonna dry off, just running air over the model here to help kind of speed up the drying. Because the quicker this dries, the quicker we can move on it. Challenge is going to be when I start the actual brush work. The dry brush, is the stuff just going to come right off? Because that is the issue that you run with Reaper Bones, is that you can have it like kind of pop right off. This is drying pretty nicely. Alright, so here we go. So now we're going to start with the Zenithal Prime. So going to go heavy charcoal and then up to pale gray, and I might even do a couple of spots of it white. But this part is going to go pretty quick. Then we're going to go into the base color, which is this weird blue that I use from Model Air. It says blue on the package, but I know it's a specific type of blue, and I can't find it anywhere. It's just that weird color. But it's great for like stone, marble, that type of thing. All right, so a little bit of airbrush thinner. I thin every paint that goes through the airbrush, except for primer. I just buy airbrush primer. And yeah, these are, like, some of these are airbrush grade paints, but even then I'll still thin them. Because it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to have your airbrush, like, clogging up on you. And also, I find using Vallejo airbrush thinner, this Vallejo airbrush thinner, this stuff is idiot proof. At least as far as I'm concerned. Ooh. Right after I said that, looks like I might have over thinned. Yeah, the idea is this is going to be a mason goal. Supposed to look like a partially finished sculpture, like they're just chiseling away at it. Kind of the idea I have is I took a Reaper Bones model and just kind of covered the bottom half of it in epoxy sculpt, which is like the same stuff as Milliput. So when you're zenithal priming, I generally hold the model upside down when I start priming it. Then, as it starts to dry, or as I start to add more, I turn it around. There we go. So far, so good. And then again, we can speed up the drying. Same way, we're going to blow a little air over it. Let me clear my airbrush. So this, again, we're going for speed on this guy. As the song goes, we're going the distance. We are going for speed. I don't care if that was a bad joke. It's fine. That's what we're doing. And that's a cool song, so. I heard that remade recently. Kind of bought. I was like, isn't that a little soon for that song to be remade? Like, that song's not even, like, 10 years old. But whatever. People just remake shit whenever they can. They're like, oh, that was good. And they'll just remake it immediately. All right, so again, running some more air over it, trying to get things to dry up so we can do the next part. There is one little minor detail on here that you can't see. You probably won't be able to see until I'm done with this stage. Some of that primer, you can see some of that primer didn't happen in there. Okay, so at this point you go with a medium gray. You can go with a medium gray. I go for a little bit of a sharper, like you could do a 3 or a 4 stage zenithal prime. I moved to basically a 3 stage. It's almost a 2.5 stage. So I go pale gray blue. That's the next color to go on here. And you know, as the technique goes, you basically just hold the model up at a tighter angle when you're doing this. The other key to zenithal priming is obviously the intent. Once you get the black down, the intent is not to cover the whole model, which is why you do the several, you know, you may do a few different stages. So you probably won't, you know, if you spray too much of the next highlight, then you're gonna get it where you don't want it, which is in the shadows. Okay, so with this pale gray blue, what I can do with the single color is I can build the color more gradually. Okay, so where I was holding the model like this for the black, I'm going to hold the model more like this, and I'm just going to do quick passes over it. And you should start to see the color starting to develop. And it's going to happen pretty quick. You don't really even need to do that much. Like, I'm definitely doing a little bit more than I should, just so you can kind of see. So you can kind of see, here you go with the... And the other thing is, I mean, if you don't have an airbrush, you could totally do this with spray cans. It's just a little bit harder to control. You know, you could buy, you know, just buy two spray cans and just do, you know, one black can and spray the whole thing black, and then when you come back with the white, do what I'm doing here and just kind of powder the top. It is much harder. I have done it with spray cans before. I really only recommend that if you're doing large bits of terrain. Like, you can't even, it would be very difficult to do it even on a piece this big. Okay. So there we go. So there's a zenithal prime. And I'm gonna, again, we're gonna dry this off and let it, we're gonna dry this off, and then we're gonna start to base coat the model. So the principle is this: with the zenithal prime down, you, the miniature is already shaded and highlighted, or it's not actually fully shaded and highlighted, but it is well on its way. You know, you're at least 50% into the process of shading and highlighting when you do this. I'm just running air over it again. Dry everything off. So what you do when you're adding color to it is you want to add color to it, but you don't want to totally hide this gradient that you've caused. Okay, so you need the coating, you need the next color to go down, but you want it to go down like semi-transparent. It's going to be very, in other words, you want a super, super thin coat on it. And I'm going to show you how I do that with the airbrush. Okay. So we're gonna do the base coating right now. which is going to be with this blue color, which it already is. It's a model air color, so it's already thin for the airbrush. I could put it in the airbrush right now, but if I sprayed it at as is, it's just going to cover my gradient. It'll hide everything that we just did. It'll totally ruin the whole concept of zenithal priming. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. I'm going to first make it into a glaze, and then I'm going to make it into a sprayable glaze. Okay, so I'm going to do that with two different things. I'm going to use glaze medium. You can use water if you want. You can like super thin it with water. I like glaze medium because it kind of keeps the film consistent, and it's designed to kind of give you a semi-transparent film. So I'm going to put some glaze medium, and I do this all in my airbrush, which I don't recommend doing unless you're like sloppy like me and you're just gonna work really fast. So let me see. So what I do is I mix it right there in the cup. So with the glaze medium in, a couple of drops of the paint. You don't need much. Let me show you where I'm at so you guys can see. See? A little bit of paint and glaze medium. You can see already. You can already see how totally watery this is. Right, like by the time this is done, this should be as thin as like your, Agrax Earthshade, your Sepia Wash, that kind of thing. Already like super watery. Okay. Now, that's a glaze. Now, you could spray the glaze. It actually is thin enough to spray, but I'm still going to put the airbrush thinner in it because I'm a psychopath. No, I do that because, again, we want to build color really slow, and it's super important that this is a transparent coating. Like it should go on even thinner than milk. I know they always talk about the consistency of milk. This should go on thinner than most paints, because as it's going through the airbrush, it's going to dry, so it's actually going to be a little bit more opaque. All right, so I've been spraying it on my hand, and the fact that I can't really see anything, that's a good thing. So I'm gonna spray it again. I'm gonna spray it like an angle like that, and I'm spraying really thin, rotating the model regularly so that it more gradually builds the color. Okay. And so this is going to give the appearance of like more of like a lime look to it. Like lime granite. There. And it looks like nothing on camera. Looks like I haven't done anything to it, but that's correct. That's what I'm going for. That's the look. That's what it should look like. You're just gonna have to trust me on this one. And I'm just shooting the rest of it out. Whoa. All right. So now, if I wanted to, let me dry it a little bit actually. If I wanted to, I could actually put in a really top highlight to it in the form of a white. Just to really give it that pop of white. Right? I could give it just a little pop of white. In fact, I think I will. I'm just going to do it just not because it doesn't look, it's not a looks choice I'm making. I actually want to do it just so that you guys can see that, you know, what it looks like when you do add that little, just that little bit extra here. So I'm adding a little bit of white. And I'm going to mix that to the airbrush. Now at this point you can switch to your 0.2 if you're just doing detail. Like at this point I would do switch to a 0.2, or I would start doing the color blocking if there's other stuff that I want to be working on with this model, kind of like what I did with the Marcus crew. But now all I really want right now is I'm going to take this extreme angle, like almost straight down, so you can see my airbrush there. I'm going to take that almost straight down and just basically just burst it around the corners there. If this is a humanoid miniature, I would usually during this step, I would go ahead and shoot the white at the face of the model, because you want the face of the model to be fairly bright. So, all right. So now we're going to start working on the actual brush work. And there's not much of it. There really isn't a whole lot of brush work that has to happen on this goal. So I don't know, what are we, like 20 or 30 minutes into our stream here? We're doing pretty well. Again, I'm just running air over it. I've got a mold line running across the top, but I almost don't care. Last night you saw how I kind of shaped it out of the putty, and then I started to you know, put folds in it, creases in the rock and around. Now it's, you know, there's still, this kind of looks weird. I screwed up right there. That looks a little weird, but like, hold on. There you go. So now it's really starting to look like it's being carved out of the granite, right? This is the front of the goal. Not that I mean, it's two-sided, but this is the front of the goal. You can see it's kind of like, you can see like, so you see the little hammer on there? I threw that on there. That's just a piece of a sprue that I just kind of jammed on there and figured, oh, okay, well, if I'm going to have a detail on there, that's going to be the detail, and that's it. I mean, this is really, really minimalist, right? Okay. So now we're going to take some white, okay? We're going to take some white and we're going to dry brush the entire model, okay? So when I do dry brushing, I use a makeup brush. That's like one of the weird things that I do, guys, is I use a makeup brush to dry brush. You can use and the reason why I use a makeup brush, like you could use that. This might actually be a little too big. No, that might work. This has been the better one. I use a makeup brush for two reasons. One, makeup brushes have some really tightly packed bristles, whereas, you know, your watercolor paint brushes, they may not be that thick. Two, if you find the makeup brushes that are really soft, like this one's really soft. This is, I think, Elf. And you can buy these at you know, at your 99-cent store or Big Lots or Dollar Tree or whatever. You can usually find these. They're you know, it's going to cost you like $1. The only thing I would tell you to do, though, is if you're going to buy this for dry brushing, what you should do before you use it is mix a little water into it, shake it out, and start pulling the loose, because you're going to get loose fibers. You're just going to get loose fibers at the beginning. and do that a couple of times before you use it. One thing you can do to check to see if you have loose fibers is, wet the thing down, pull on the ends, and then just kind of wipe it off. Okay, so we're going to do dry brushing, which is a technique that I like swore off years ago. Like I was a big anti-dry brush snob for a while. I went through that phase in my my painting career, but we're gonna do some of that right now. So I'm gonna take some white, and I mix it with a little water anyway, even though I'm not entirely sure why, but I mix it with a little water anyways, just to get it to flow out a little bit. Okay. Then we're gonna take the brush and kind of soak up a fair bit of this. Then I'm gonna basically dab it into my cloth. I use an old t-shirt here as my, see, like, I wear these like jacked up white t-shirts while I'm painting, and they're like my undershirts, and they all have paint on them. And when they get too much paint on them, I retire them and they become a paint rag for me. So see, there's a system, but this is a system I follow. And we are going to get rid of the overwhelming majority of the paint, right? Now, when people say I notice that when a lot of people say dry brush, they mean overbrush, which is slightly different. They leave a little more paint on than you should. And I realize that I'm not anti-dry brush, I'm anti-overbrush. And the reason why I'm anti-overbrush is because it's a really messy technique, and it leaves really crusty edges on things, and I think it looks terrible. But anyways, one thing you can do if you want to see if you're ready for dry brush is to do a little brush on your hands, and if you can see the color just faintly, but you can still see the the wrinkles of your skin, then you're ready to go. So see, the brush should look like this. It should look like there's no paint on it. That's the proper dry brush, right? Nothing should be on it, or it shouldn't look like it has paint on it. Then I'm going to take this and very lightly just kind of run the brush against the grain, right? You want that white to catch the areas that the hard edges is really all you're going for, because you already have a good color transition with most everything else. You're just trying to bring out those hard edges a bit more. Right? And you're just going to do it over the whole model. And you might do a couple of layers of dry brushing. I think for our purposes, I don't need that much. I mean, there's the chiseled features of the statue, which are it's already starting to look like a proper statue. So I don't really need to do much else. Okay. So like this is super quick goal. Really, this is going to be really, really fast. The next color I'm going to use, so now I am going to use a super, super thin glaze on this to get more of that. We're going to bring out more of the green in this, okay? But I'm going to use a really kind of a weird color to do that. And the idea is I'm going to make this so thin that it's going to act like a wash, okay? So I'm going to take this phthalo green. I actually have some of it here on my wet palette from last night. and I'm going to add some glaze medium to it. I'm going to basically, the idea is I'm going to thin the crap out of this, okay? So it's already thin. It's been on the wet palette for a while. So it's already thin with water. I'm going to add glazed medium to it. And I'm going to add a couple of drops of this thinner medium. Right? You can already see the thinner medium kind of acting there. I want the glazed medium in there because the glazed medium, again, is going to allow the paint to be a little semi-transparent. You can see as I'm mixing the color that this is going to be. But again, I want this to be so thin. The whole purpose, like the whole technique now is really to try to make these things as thin as you could possibly imagine. I'm even going to add a little bit more glazed medium to it. That might have been too much, but again, I don't care. It's better to be thin than too thick and potentially ruin the whole thing on your first application, right? If you're too thin, it's easy to rectify. You just basically build the color up. Okay. So now we're going to take a proper paintbrush. I'm using a Winsor Newton number 3, I think. Is it 2 or a 3? I forget. And just to be safe, I'm going to start here towards the bottom of the miniature, right? Just to be safe, just to see, is it too bright? That's actually pretty bright. So I actually need it even thinner than that. There we go. Like that's what I want. I want it to look like that. Okay. So even this is too thick. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take some of this already super thin material, and we're going to thin it even further. Like, we're now talking like 1 drop in 20, essentially. Add more glazed medium to it. There we go. Now this stuff is super, super thin. And the other thing I like about the glazed medium is that it keeps the paint open for longer. So you can actually work with it. Like, you can actually start to move it around if it's wrong, right? If it's not doing what you want it to, you can move it around. You can even remove it entirely by taking a wet brush and brushing over that. You see how this is kind of giving me this like lime color? That's what I want. I want the lime color, but I don't want to lose my color transition from the zenithal prime, and I don't want to lose the hard edges that I left with the dry brushing. So the other thing this is doing is it's actually helping to soften up the hard edges I left by dry brushing white. But at the same time, those hard edges are strong enough to stand up to the glaze. And so what we're left with is a pretty cool effect here, which actually looks like nothing on camera. So I'm apologizing to you guys for what this looks like on camera, but I assure you, this is what we're going for. This is kind of that weird, like, I don't know if it's like a lime, I don't know if it's slate or if it's granite or if it's lime. Maybe it's more of a granite. But it's a wonderful color. So we're going to put all that down. So really all this technique relies upon is the consistency of your paint and the technique itself. You don't have to be a particular artist, or you don't have to be precise with the brush to do this kind of work. We're going for an effect, not, we're not we're not painting in freehand or anything like that. This is just use the paint itself, use the properties of the paint itself to give you what you want. Okay. Now this is going to take a while to dry. This is going to be the longest part of this whole process, is letting that glaze dry. We're not going to I might come back and hit it with a little more. I might go at it with by adding a little bit of darker green to this, and like working that green. Can I actually? There we go. Okay. Hey, what's up, Tori? So, you can kind of see what it's doing right now. So see that? Let me stand it up on this thing so you can see. So there. So it's starting to look like rock now. This is the effect that we want. And I can add more green to it, or I can add more gray. I can even add black to it and take it in a little bit. It just depends on you. At this point, I mean, you can put you can water down that umber shade and start putting some of that in the bottom to give it additional effects. You could even, if you wanted to, you could even mix the reds and the browns and get a richer shadow, even purple. You could even do purple on this and give it additional effects too, which would probably actually kind of look kind of cool. But you'd have to just remember, when you're working with this kind of stuff, you're working, with this kind of work, you don't want those other colors to overshadow what you've done here. This is the gist of what it should look like, or at least how I imagined it in my mind, that it would look kind of like that. And I was going to dress up the base. I can dress up the base with a few different things. I could even put, I can paint in some soil below it. I can put in a flower or something. I might do that actually. I might even just squeeze in a little flower like right there in the back corner, just so people can see, oh yeah, this is, it's weird. It's like the Masons have, they found this weird bit of lime green, and they're gonna paint it that way. So, but yeah, you can see so far I'm pretty happy with it. And you can see that the color transition, see, you can see without even me doing too many effects, that it's lighter way up here, and you can see that zenithal prime has held. It's still darker as you get towards the bottom. That's what we're going for. That's why you do the whole technique. And again, if you do too much paint, if you do too thick, or if you do, if you get a little, I'll just say, if you get a little too cute with it, you'll lose that effect, and you don't want to do that, right? To me, this already looks, it looks close to done. Now, the only thing really that we might do is I might go back, well, if I'm gonna, what I'll do here actually is I'm gonna, we'll add a little bit more shade on the bottom and in the crevices, and then we'll add a little more light on the top. The idea is, let's make it a little more, let's make it just a little slightly dramatic, just a little bit, right? So I need like an emerald type color here. Like a rich, need a rich green color. I could even add like a green ink to it. That would be kind of cool. You can also even do, if you're in the GW stuff, Athenian camo shade, I think. It would be a cool one to add, and you just add it towards the bottom. That's all you're trying to do, is you're just going to add a little bit of believability to it. Like you could go, in fact, if you wanted to, you could go Biel-Tan green, and then you can go Athenian camo shade lower than that. And let's try it. I don't care. I mean, this is like 2 seconds worth of work. There's no downside to this, right? Right? I can totally do this. No one will even know. Let's try it. And if it screws up, oh well. Right? That's painting, guys. That's why we do this. I turn the camera on and we try to figure out how do we do these cool things while we're not as talented as the other guys, because I clearly am not. But I think about crazy things like this. Right? So I'm going to take that Biel-Tan green. I'm going to add just a hair bit of water to it, because this stuff doesn't need much. There we go. And again, the safest way to do this is to start at the bottom. And I know the glaze is still drying, but you start at the bottom and just kind of stipple it on there. Just place it in areas where you think most of your shadow will be. Right? If you have heavy folds or whatever. The idea is that this granite or this lime may have some algae on it. It may just be it just may be like kind of a magical green limestone thing. So I'm going to put that on it. Okay. And it's given me just a little bit more green towards the bottom. Again, still haven't taken away from the zenithal prime. See? There we go. No harm, no foul. Didn't really do too much to it. Just gave it a little bit more of a green tinge and a little bit more shadow. That's exactly what we wanted, so we're super happy about that. Okay. Okay. And let's take it a little bit further, because we can. Let me see if I can find my Athenian camo shade, because I think that would be a cool one. I'm sorry, Athonian camo shade. I don't know what this stuff is. Hardly ever. This has quite a bit more umber in it, so it's gonna look great on the bottom, right? So same deal. We're gonna put it on our palette here. We're gonna mix it with a little bit of water. We're going to start at the bottom. And that's giving it it's giving the bottom a more dusty look to it, which is kind of cool. I'm already liking that. Like it's giving the model kind of a dingier look. Yeah, I'm loving that a lot. That's awesome. Yeah, that worked out really nice. It's just like the simplest little things, like we're problem is now it's going to take hours for this stuff to dry. It's okay. You can see what I'm going for though. Now it's really kind of, you know, darker and dingier as you get to the bottom. It's going to be a while till I can paint the hammer in. Actually, no, I can't. I can totally paint the hammer in now because I didn't really wash it that much. Okay, so I'm just going to do that right now. I'm just going to slap a little bit of brown on the handle and a little bit of the black on the I don't know if that's true black or no, I think this is the charcoal color. There we go. And what's cool about this is that really does look like a cool hammer on there. All right, we're gonna take a little bit of a breather here and let stuff dry. And I'm gonna show you guys what this looks like. Okay, see? So you can see transitions are still in place. Things look really nice. It looks a lot more organic now, but you have that beautiful color transition from the top of the model to the bottom, and it looks like almost like, you know, you're dirtier and dingier as you go towards the bottom of the model. But this, I'm telling you, this is the easiest painting ever. It's like, oh, I need to do a rock thing. Okay, well, there. Real cheap, quick and dirty. This cost me $3. The Pillar of Good is $3, and you know, bits I had around, and a little bit of epoxy sculpt, and there you go, man. I can. So what I may do is after this is dry, give it one final white dry brush, and again concentrate mostly on the top of the model just to make things a little more striking. But that's like I'm down, man. I don't know. What do you tell me what you guys think? You think that's like really easy, right? There's no hard thinking, no brain surgery or anything there. Easiest thing, probably the easiest thing I've ever painted. But it shows you the basis of my speed painting technique, and that was kind of the intent of the whole video. Was like, you guys watch me, those who watch the channel watch me do that in various degrees and with various levels of complexity. But ultimately, this is all I'm doing, and it's not. And I'll be the first to tell you, this is not like avant-garde painting. Like this is not. This isn't going to show up on your, you know, the cool kids. Essentially, they're not teaching this at Adepticon. They're not. You know, there's no expensive DVD set to teach you how to do this. This is just super easy. But it's the theory that goes into this, and essentially just the way to take some things that some core ideas and run with them. You know, the one thing that the pro painters, like the really good painters, will teach you is lighting and shading and glazing and even dry brushing. They'll show you that stuff, and they'll show you and you know, they'll do a much better job than I have teaching you how to do that kind of stuff. But I'm here to show you that this is, when it comes down to it, this is just how simple this really is. The hard part for me is how or what do I use to actually color, to paint the basin. That's been my struggle. And I think I'm using this Mediterranean blue. I think I'm doing that. So what I'm gonna do is, well, we'll give it a few more minutes to dry, but, and if you guys have any questions, like, go ahead and feel free to fire away. But that's, like, I don't really know an easier way of showing you guys. Like, that's it. This is what we do. It's very, very easy. And I'm pretty happy. I got a really just generic goal that I can put up when we're playing Guild Ball, and I'm not worried about it. Like, I'm not worried about this thing breaking like my metal goal. My metal goal is a lot more elaborate in its design, but I think this actually says Masons better than my other one does, right? Because we're just carving something off. So the only thing it needs is, I need to put a, actually, now that I think about it, if I really wanted to do it up, I stick a Guild Ball on top, right? That's what I should do. Like, if I really want to make this thing pop as a Guild Ball goal, I take a Guild Ball and stick it right on top of that pillar. Dang, that would have been awesome. I can actually retroactively do that. Like, I can go and pick up a Guild Ball and paint one and do that. But yeah, I don't know. Let's hang out for a bit. Again, if you guys have any comments or anything like that, let me know. If you want to look at anything I painted last night, now's the time. You can ask me to show you something. I do need to kind of re-photograph that set and put it up on eBay. So if you are interested in a set, I actually shouldn't be trying to sell things here with my last 9 minutes of this 60-minute video. Wait a minute, how long has this video been going? I need to know. Because this is supposed to be a 60-minute video. 52:18. Okay, so I have 8 minutes to finish this this thing here. And this is not going to dry in 8 minutes, but I can actually try to soak up a little bit of it around the lip and just paint the lip in blue. I can do that. Okay. Running out of space on this particular wet palette, so I may... Ooh, what color is that? That's a nice color. Oh no, that's blue wash. It's not a color. Still a nice opaque color. This may not be dark enough. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna put this down. Yeah, that's definitely not dark enough. And I'm gonna add a little bit of this charcoal to it. Get it to the right color. What I'm looking for is, I need a blue, like out of the bottle blue that's this dark, so that I can reliably, when I paint new Masons models, I always use that specific blue on their base, and so that everything matches. I'm having that issue between seasons, is that they're not matching. I'm doing all this stuff, but they're not matching. Okie doke, here we go. I could also, like I was saying, I could also throw flowers on the corner of one of these, this rock, just to give it a little splash of color. I have to find my little flower things though. Okay. What do you guys say on the flowers? Yay or nay? Should this thing have flowers on it? Now I'm going to need something new to paint over the weekend. There goes my weekend project. But yeah, there you go, man. What do you think? Yay, nay? Think have we reached the E? I don't know what that means. But yeah, dude, that's I have 5 minutes. I have 5 minutes. I can actually let this stuff dry and then do a really, really light dry brush on it if I were so inclined. But that, I don't know, man. That looks. I think that's what I want. That's. I'm wondering if flowers kind of blow it. Well, let's just settle that by seeing if I even have flowers in my basing kit. My gut is telling me no, I'm out of flowers. I am seeing no flowers. Also, I did not realize I had that much sticky tack. Could do weird stuff, like I could put a little like hay in there. I'm gonna save that for Farmers Guild though. Yeah, Farmers Guild. And all kinds of like shrubbery. I have grass tuft I could put on there. The tuft looked kind of dumb though. I think that's what I want to say right there. That's what I want to say. This. But yeah, there's no way the glaze is going to dry in time for me to do the dry brush. And maybe I don't need it. Maybe I just let it dry. I could do, like if I wanted it darker, I could do Athenian camo shade over the whole thing. But I think that's right. I think that's what we're going for. That. Right? That's the other issue I have with my own painting is I'm incredibly easily satisfied. So I don't like I think some people have told me like the issue they have with painting is that they're never satisfied. So whenever they're painting something, like if they're painting a shirt on a model, they'll do it over and over again. They'll spend 5 hours on the one shirt, then the shirt will never turn out as well as they had imagined it in their brain, and then they'll stop painting. I hear that actually a lot amongst people who want to learn how to paint or who try to paint. That yeah, they do that and then they're so perfectionist that it doesn't work. I have the opposite problem. Like I start painting something, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go with it, and I like it, and I just barrel through and finish it, and yeah, there we have it. So this is a 60-minute video. Probably 45 minutes of actual painting and like 15 minutes of like not saying anything useful or constructive, and we're very proud of that. That's it's a hallmark of this channel. So anyways, we are at the 60-minute mark, guys. I want to thank everybody for watching. I will turn the camera on later tonight if I'm so inclined or if I'm working on something else. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. That's the gist of how I paint a model. Really, it really is. That is literally what I do. If you guys really want to know the process from start to finish. So that's it. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. I think. We'll see.